Whatever happened to the concept of being nice? Whatever happened to the concept of greeting other people and doing it in a way that it sounded friendly and then they would greet you back? You know, this is proof to me that this country has definitely become polarizing in certain ways. I don't think that it's necessarily race. I don't necessarily think that it's sex. I think that we've just gotten to a place where we really have to think about whether we want to be part of the collective or, in my case, more introverted than we used to be. I'll tell you what I mean. One of those things I've always done, because I walk a lot. I like to go to the lake sometimes and walk. I like to walk what I call the neighborhood, which I now have 4 different ways that I can walk the neighborhood. One of them is extremely long, one is very short, and the other 2 are just differences. For instance, yesterday I made one of these walks where I decided to take a diversion, and it's the first time I've ever walked that way, and I've lived in this complex over 20 years, and I'm seeing this one area in a different perspective that I'd never seen before, and I said, wow, this is way different. But one of the things that happens is that there are other people who are walking. Some of them are walking or running or jogging or doing whatever. And whenever I've seen people doing that, they're coming my way, I've always either said hello or gave them a little wave. Back in the day, everyone always responded. Either they said hello or they gave a wave. Now, that almost never happens. Yesterday, I did that to 6 or 7 different people. Only one person responded. It was this one lady who was walking, or basically being walked by these 2 big dogs on either side of her. So I'm sure she was looking for a reason to be able to slow down for a minute and even stop for a moment, because there's just no way if both of these dogs had decided they were just going to go on a run, she was going to be able to hold them. And we have dog walkers in the area, by the way, so I don't think they were her dogs. And it just made me wonder, what happened? Did the pandemic change people, or is it just society that's changed? I've always done that. I think that back when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I would hop in the car and I would just drive. Had no idea where I was going. We didn't have GPS. I would just decide I'm going that way and just drive. And whatever I saw, I saw. And then when it was time to go back home and I had no map or whatever, I would say, okay, I started out going east, so I'm going to go west. Or I started out going north, so I'm going to go south. And eventually I'll run into something that I'll either recognize or I will see a sign for a place that I recognize, and I'll find my way home, and I always did. And in retrospect, I realized that sometimes I put myself in some dangerous situations, but it was actually safer back then than it is now. You know, back then you didn't have people basically holding a gun saying, I don't know who that is, I'm just going to shoot him. That seems to happen a lot these days. That's happened in New York. I can't necessarily say my area, but I can say less than an hour away in some of the smaller communities that I'd never even heard of. And, you know, that happens. You know, I live in a larger, you know, metropolitan area than I'll call the sticks. I don't really know what to call them, but they're just little towns that I've never heard of. And this one made national news where this lady, you know, she realized with other people in the car that they'd gone down a wrong road. They go to turn around and this guy shoots him from the house and killed the driver. I mean, wow. And then he said, well, he thought someone was coming to kill him. It's like, dude, you had a gun. All you do was point the gun at him. They'd have left. This young lady's 21 years old, got killed. Still, I just couldn't believe yesterday. It's not the first time I've noticed it, but it's the first time it really bothered me enough to want to say something about it, because I just can't stop myself. I've tried to tell myself, stop saying hi to people. Just don't do it. But I can't stop. It's ingrained in me. Now, when I go to the lake for a walk, it's slightly different, because there are people who, if they pass me, because I'm walking slower these days because my leg hurts, heck, That's one of those things about getting older. Anyway, when people walk me, sometimes we make eye contact and I'll say hi and they'll say hi, or they'll say hi first and I say hi back. Sometimes if people are coming at me, towards me, if there's more than one person, most of the time we'll all greet each other. Hi, how you doing? And then we just keep walking. If someone is running, they're never going to say hi. If they've got the ear things in, they're not saying hi. I usually have one, and it's usually the one that's on the side that's not where the people are going to walk, because I always walk on the end so that I can hear people coming up behind me, because I'm the only kid, only child. I kind of freak out about that if someone comes up on me and I don't know they're there. That still happens, by the way. Every once in a while, you just don't hear something, some people, but in general, I usually hear it. And it's just an odd thing. And it turns out, I'm talking about just walking in the neighborhood or walking at the lake, but it's changed everywhere else also. This is going to be hard for some folks to believe, but back in the day, if I was walking downtown Syracuse area, if I saw a black person, we always greeted each other. We didn't say hi out loud. We didn't wave our hands, but we would see each other and we'd do the dap. We would nod to each other. The reason being is because it's a drastic minority, black people as opposed to everybody else. And so you always acknowledge that, okay, good, there's somebody who, at least now we see each other. If we hear something on the news later on and we see it on the news that was someone we saw, we could always call and say, yeah, I saw so-and-so, or I didn't know who that person was, but I saw them near such and such. It's just what we did. We did that for decades, but it didn't happen necessarily in all black communities because they're used to each other. You're more used to each other. So that didn't happen when I lived in Kansas City. When I went to Washington, D.C. back in the late 70s, and I'm walking by myself and I'm walking through the black neighborhood, and I was way overly dressed because I went down on a college choir tour. And after the first couple, I said, okay, you know what? I'm kind of standing out here. I've got my nice white shirt on. It's 88 degrees because we didn't know when I left Oswego and it was 33 degrees that it was going to be in the 80s in Washington. So, none of us took anything that was going to help us stay cooler. Miserable time. Still, you got to learn that, okay, if you're part of a community and now you're more in the majority rather than the minority, those things don't happen the same way. But in today's world, I have found myself still walking downtown Syracuse, which I don't do often, but I do it on occasion, and I will see someone do the thing. They just walk by me like I didn't exist. It's like, oh my goodness. Now, is that because I don't necessarily look like I, belong in the community? I don't know. Is it the fact that I'm older, and as folks have changed, and in general, older folks don't get the kind of, I don't want to say respect, but maybe that's some of it. But we don't get that anymore. Or maybe it's just that things have changed so much that folks really want to kind of stay in their own lane. They don't want to get associated with anything. They don't want to get, see something different. And all of a sudden now they're going to, be in some kind of trouble, or they're worried about trouble. They don't want to do it. Or maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just don't care. Like I said, maybe it's a whole different thing and I'm still living in the past. I don't know. I don't know if I like it or don't like it, because I have withdrawn a lot over the last, I'll say last 10 years. It's a little more than 10 years, but in the last 10 years, I've withdrawn a lot. But I still have those things that say you still have to be, quote unquote, friendly. You have to acknowledge that someone else is there. It doesn't matter who they are, unless, there's a whole group of folks who are carrying signs or whatever, and you're like, okay, those are signs. Let me just go this way so I don't have to worry about dealing with that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's just me. Maybe I'm not seeing things the right way. If everyone is seeing the same thing, I'd like to know what y'all think. Do you see these types of things? Are you younger and you've noticed that this is just the way y'all are? Have you noticed there's folks who like maybe in my age group, I'm in the early 60s, who are trying to be nice, and you're like, I don't know who that person is, so I'm not going to acknowledge it. I just want to know. I don't know if I can stop. I don't know if I should stop. But I don't know. Y'all let me know how it is in your community or when you go on a trip. And I'm just curious. Want to know what everyone else is doing. This is all I got on a Sunday late morning. Isn't that a shame? Anyway, my name's Mitch Mitchell. Hope y'all are having a good day. Let's see if I get any comments on this. Y'all take care.